Hello, sir. Sir, good morning, sir. Surendra, sir.
Ma'am, good morning, ma'am.
So, shall we start, sir?
Yeah, sure, ma'am.
Yes. Good morning to one and all present here. I welcome you all for the AICT sponsored Atal Online Faculty Development Program on Artificial Intelligence Enabled Sensors and Networks for 5G Wireless Communication for Day 3 and Session 7. Today, our resource person is Dr. M. Surender, Associate Professor, National Institute of Technology, Puducherry, and he's going to deliver a lecture on the title 5G and VR Wireless Communication, a Physical Layer Perspective. Dr. M. Surender is currently working as an Associate Professor in Electronics and Communication Engineering in the Department of National Institute of Technology, Puducherry. He has completed his BE Electronics and Communication Engineering in Tyagaraja College of Engineering and ME in Wireless Technology in the same institute. And he has completed his PhD in National Institute of Technology, Tiruchirappalli. After his PhD, he has worked in Sankhya Labs Private Limited as a software-defined radio-based company as a senior member technical staff. His current area of research includes 5G and beyond 5G wireless communication, physical layer, signal processing, massive MIMO, ultra-low latency communication, and NOMA. He has published his research papers in many reputed SCI indexed journals and Scopus. He is a co-principal investigator of the project titled Receiver Design of Low Latency 5G Wireless Communication, funded by Sri Lankan Technological University in collaboration with Professor Dr. Nalin from Russia, who is a fellow of IET UK. I request Dr. M. Surender to take over the session.
Thank you, ma'am. So, I hope I'll share my screen. Yeah, I think my screen is visible and I'm audible as well.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay, so this is my topic of presentation today, 5G and beyond wireless communication, PHY, physical layer perspective. Okay, so right now there was a call for the Serbo Online. They have called for some project, and I just wondered. They have mentioned about 6G and 7G because they are inviting projects for 6G and 7G. There is no word that is 5G. So you could think like how fast this area is moving on. Even I may have to update my I mean, update my title. But anyway, 5G is the majority of my slides cover. 5G, the technologies that is being used in 5G, that is what it will be covered throughout. And of course, there are a few technologies which will be covered after that, definitely in 6G. Okay, so we will start on this. So this is how much serious on at what phase this field is getting developed, okay, particularly this virus communication. So let's start with the motivation. See, whatever communication we take, okay, this is one important motivation we used to have, like what is the data rate we are going to serve within a particular cell. That means a hexagonal cell. Okay, within a hexagonal cell. Hope you, I'm just assuming that you are all aware of what is a hexagonal cell is. In case if there is a message or something, please let me know, because I have to come out of the slide and I want to check on your message. Okay, so ultimately we want to increase the throughput of the system. Okay, network throughput. Network throughput means we want within a square kilometer. That means within a hexagonal cell, we want to increase the data rate. Okay, increase the data rate means we can accommodate more number of users. Okay, so how we are going to do that? Okay, so that is that measure is quantified by something called throughput, network throughput, and this network throughput depends on three different parameters. One is cell density, Another one is available spectrum and the spectral efficiency. Okay, product of all these three actually. Okay, so you could see the unit of throughput is bits per second per kilometer square. That means within a square kilometer, what is the data rate? And we can either improve it by cell density. That means cell per kilometer square. That means we have to deploy more number of base stations. Okay, that means if we are deploying more number of base stations, means like hope you remember this micro cells and things like that. That means people will draw hexagon within a hexagon within a hexagon. Okay, they split the cells. Okay, the cell splitting will be happening, and they install more number of base stations. So that is one way of improving the improving your throughput. But the problem is installing a base station in an area is not a simple thing at all. I hope you know the space constraints are there. Okay, nowadays I could see some base stations which just have a land post. Okay, just has a land post, strong land post. It's lean only, and they hold up some antennas. Okay, at the top. Okay, such base stations are there, but still people are people really don't want to expose to that kind of frequency or this mobile signal. Okay, that is very near to the base station. Okay, obviously it will have its medical effects when we go near it, when we get exposed continuously. Okay, but anyway, measures are being taken. We have a regulatory body. So such things are there, such problems are there for installing new base stations. Even Jio people rents this base station from BSNL. Even though BSNL is not right now not a big player, Jio is Jio and Airtel are the huge players in our Indian communication, and they do rent these base stations from BSNL for communication, and they install their own antennas, or they have their own setup there. Okay, so that is one thing. And secondly, we have available spectrum. Okay, the thing is the spectrum is not it is not available freely. Okay, the purchase of spectrum, if you see, there was an auction for around 2300 megahertz. Okay, that is a bandwidth of 2300 megahertz. That means each each 1 megahertz will cost around 490 to 490 crores. Okay, around 490 crores. I have my own notes that has this numbers, and this rates are fixed by a body called TRAI, Telecom Regulatory Authority of India. Okay, they do fix these rates, and the thing is, there are a lot of frequencies are being sold, and few frequencies are left unsold out of this 2300 megahertz. Particularly the frequencies near this 700 megahertz, and the frequencies around 2.5 gigahertz. So those the selling of those are I mean they do leave a bid. Okay, people bid for it. Generally, Jio, Bharti Airtel, and Vodafone Idea. I hope you know what the VI symbol nowadays. You find it very often. Okay, but the thing is, this Vodafone Idea, they won't they don't have as much a spectrum like Airtel and Airtel and Jio. Okay, but in some areas, definitely it will have a huge bandwidth, and they used to serve users with a higher speed. Okay, but this Jio and Vodafone, Jio and Bharti Airtel are someone who has a large amount of spectrum. Okay, around India has right now sold around some 850 megahertz of spectrum. Okay, for around some 77,000 crores. Okay, people used to say 2G, right? 2G means scam spectrum. Okay, people say, but right now that has been that case has been dissolved due to some facts. Okay, Right now, they sold this 850 megahertz for around 77,000 only. Okay, but the money they make, okay, the money the Geo and Airtel make, that will be way more than what they are holding up now. And the 800 megahertz, the 700 megahertz region, this around the 700 megahertz, around the frequency 700 megahertz, the frequency for lower frequency, the penetration will be higher. Okay, that means if you are transmitting a signal at a lower frequency, particularly you see GSM, you can GSM or LTE, it will operate around 2.3 gigahertz. Okay, particular GSM will operate on 900 megahertz, and another one is 1.8 gigahertz. Okay, so those two frequencies are used by GSM, that is the 2G. Okay, and the thing is, if the lower the frequency, the higher will be the cost. Okay, because the penetration power is so high, so you don't want to install more number of base stations. Okay, but you can serve everyone, you can attain easy connectivity with that lower frequency. So this 700 megahertz fixed at a base price that is way more higher than Geo or Bharti Airtel could buy. Okay, so they just neglected this 700 megahertz. I think we will move forward. So this available spectrum is one thing. I just wanted to say that the available spectrum is so costlier. Okay, we can't keep increasing the available spectrum. So the third one is the spectral efficiency. So this is where we deal with the technologies. Okay, spectral efficiency means when we say we are increasing the data rate, it not necessarily to be we are increasing the available spectrum. We can increase the we should increase the spectral efficiency. As an engineer, we should talk about increasing the spectral efficiency. That means spectral efficiency means how many bits per second are we sending per hertz. Okay, within 1 hertz, that is what the efficiency, right? So within a hertz, how much amount of bits we can send per second. Okay, so that is the spectral efficiency. If you see, this has some around 15 bits per hertz. The spectral efficiency is around 30 bits per hertz for downlink and 15 for uplink. Okay, so those things are there. And so how we are going to increase the spectral efficiency? So that is the main motivation behind the technologies that has been that we are going to discuss in this throughout this lecture. Okay, so this is the motivation of anything, any communication system. The only thing we concentrate is the spectral efficiency. How we are going to increase that? What are all the various technologies to increase this spectral efficiency? Okay, so this is the evolution. I hope everyone knows this almost. We have 2G, 2.5G, that is GSM, okay, global system for mobile communication, and CDMA. So everything has a data rate of 10 kbps only. And there comes GPRS, that is this global packet radio service. Okay, so that has around 50 kbps. Okay, and then we have edge. Right now, even nowadays, we used to experience this edge when you are using BSNL net or something. You could able to see the symbol E there. Okay, that is edge. That means enhanced data rate for GSM evolution. Okay, so that can achieve around 200 kbps. Okay, and we have other 3G technologies as well, like WCDMA and CDMA 2000. So those things are not famous here, but we do have a HSDPA in India. We do have HSDPA and HSUPA. I think the first video call was introduced by BSNL. Okay, that was during 3G. Okay, that is the era of 3G and 3.5G. So HSDPA, high speed downlink packet access, and HSUPA, high speed uplink packet access. Okay, so it can achieve around 30 Mbps, around, okay, between 5 to 30 Mbps. So this is an overview of the evolution of the technology so far. And we have, of course, we have 4G right now. We are experiencing it, right? So we have LTE advanced, right? Long-term evolution. So those things have a speed of 100 Mbps. See, when I say speed, that is when we mean data rate, it means it is for the complete cell. Okay, so we will see what are all the targets of. So I'll skip this. We will see what are all the targets of 5G. The first target is anyway increase in the data rate. There is some terminology in 5G that is called EMBB, enhanced mobile broadband. Okay, so it is nothing but you want to increase the data rate of the system. Okay, so I have given 10 Gbps. That is, this 10 Gbps is for uplink, and for downlink we have 20 Gbps. That means we are not going to experience 10 Gbps. Okay, in real time. That means for a base station, that is within a cell, it can like serve at 10 Gbps per second. Okay, 10 Gbps or 20 Gbps for the downlink. But in real world, that means we can actually experience around 100 Mbps. Okay, so what is the necessity of keep on increasing this data rate? People may ask. Okay, the thing is, there are a lot of applications that are all coming up. You could see one of the playful application is like video games. Okay, video games with the high graphics, even with the virtual reality, people are playing with the higher graphics. So those things actually require a higher data rate. Yeah, we will see the other targets of 5G too. And another one is spectral bandwidth, as I said earlier. Millimeter wave bandwidth is something we are going to use. That means beyond 6 gigahertz. Okay, so far we have used only sub 6 gigahertz band. That means below 6 gigahertz band only. So if we are going beyond this 6 gigahertz band, that is, we will be having more bandwidth, because when you take a center frequency, 10% of that center frequency will be the bandwidth. So 10% of 700 megahertz is different from 10% of some 28 gigahertz. Okay, so this spectral bandwidth will be more and more when we move to the higher frequencies. Then why don't we still go for that? Why don't we straight away go to the higher frequencies? That would be one obvious question we have to answer. In the upcoming slides, I will give an answer for that. So another one is device connectivity. So device connectivity is 1 million users. They are targeting to connect 1 million users per square kilometer. That means you see nowadays people have a lot of electronic gadgets with them. Okay, anyway, everyone will have a mobile phone. We have a smartwatch. Okay, we have some Google glasses. Okay, so that the smart glasses are also available, and some heart rate monitoring things. So a lot of wearables are also available to monitor our health. So such things are keep on evolving. Even Bluetooth headset we do have, right? So everything, if you are connecting to internet, okay, so that means we could able to be so smart on that, right? So that is the device connectivity they are planning to have. So we have more number of connectivity. 5G is something, a key contributor. That is 5G communication. Generally 5G or any other communication is the key part of your IoT, Internet of Things. Okay, if someone is organizing something regarding IoT, they cannot ignore this communication. Okay, without communication there is no Internet of Things, right? So in the coverage area, of course the coverage area has to be improved. The challenging part is when we are moving to the higher order frequencies, higher frequencies, the coverage area will be getting lesser. Okay, we will discuss that. And the coverage area has to be at least matched with right now what we have for 4G. Okay, but definitely they will be beating this 4G coverage area as well, because at times we may get a lower tower range, right? So those things can be rectified, will be rectified in 5G definitely. And they are planning to give some focused beam towards some villages which has a lesser population. Okay, so those things are also planned for 5G, and the less round trip delay. So this is something. This is where we got one project. We are doing a project with Professor Nalin. So ultra reliable low latency communication. So what does that mean? So it requires a communication which has a timing less than 1 millisecond. Okay, when I'm talking here, you could be able to hear me at least after 1 or 2 seconds only. So what is the application of having a less round trip delay? You just imagine we have some, there are driverless cars are coming up. Okay, autonomous vehicles are coming up. Okay, so how come this autonomous vehicle and this round trip delay, that is the latency things are related. When you are operating, that means you want to have some driverless car and you have a driver module installed in your home and you want to drop some guest in a railway station or a bus stand. Okay, so you don't want to go in the car personally. Rather, you use your you can use your driver module. Okay, and you can from here from your home you could see what you could see from the car. Okay, using a virtual reality or something, you could see what is actually happening in the car. I mean, what you can actually see from a car, that you could see. That means you could see a road actually. And when we apply a brake or something, when something is interfering us and we want to apply a brake, the action has to be transferred quickly towards the car. Okay, if I am applying a brake here and it takes 2 or 3 seconds to go there, means then definitely there will be a problem. That means accident can happen. Okay? So even telemedicine, okay, tele surgeries are also planned with such latency, low latency. Okay, so these are all the applications of ultra low latency communication, and the round trip delay is planned as is less than 1 millisecond. Okay, previously it was around for 4G it was around 40 milliseconds. Okay, 30 to 40 milliseconds, and less energy consumption. So it has to quickly go to the lower energy state. Okay, so that means when there is a call, okay, when a call comes to our phone, it has to be, anyway it will be fully active because we will be connecting to our friend and we have to talk, so it will be fully active. So once you are done with your call, once you have terminated your call, suddenly it has to enter into the low energy state, so that a lot of energy will be saved and your battery life will be more. Okay, so and also in case of wireless sensor networks, we install more number of nodes. Okay, nodes in the sense it can be anything. It can be sensors. It can be any other whatever possible transmission that a device can make, that are all called nodes. Okay, so consider a sensor. Okay, if it is installed in a place where if it is installed in a place where it has where it cannot be accessed, where the sensors cannot be accessed, and you cannot keep on replacing the batteries every time. So there you have to ensure that once in at least 10 years only we should replace the battery there. Okay, so that actually contributes to the energy efficiency of our system. Okay, so this is one target of 5G, and this is the coverage comparison of different spectrum of 5G. You could see there is less than 6 gigahertz. Okay, the less than 1 gigahertz. As I said, there was a 700 megahertz band that is being auctioned in India, but none of them are ready to buy it because it is way more costlier than they thought. Okay, so 700 megahertz is one thing, because in around 700 megahertz, 1 megahertz is around 6,000 crores. Okay, 1 megahertz they are selling for 6,000 crores, whereas in the range of 3.3 or 3.6 gigahertz per megahertz, it is around only 500 crores. Okay, 1 megahertz is around 500 crores only. Okay, see the difference between them. So the 700 megahertz is one thing they can use for 5G, and already this 5G is being piggybacked by the frequencies of LTE. Okay, that means the 4G network, whatever we are having now, they are trying to implement some kind of 4.5G. So that's what is LTE-A. Okay, advanced is one thing. Okay, so we have another one that is sub 6 gigahertz band. Okay, you could see this is This is less than 1 gigahertz. Okay, and this is less than, that is sub 6 gigahertz band. So there we have it has a little lesser coverage, not little, okay, lesser coverage than your less than 1 gigahertz band. You could see the coverage here is more, okay, and it can penetrate easily. In high penetration can be there, and also the peak data rate is 100 Mbps. Okay, here the peak data rate is 1 Gbps, but the coverage is not as good as your less than 1 gigahertz thing. Okay, so you may have to need more. You may need a more number of base stations to be installed. And there is another one that is greater than 6 gigahertz. So there you could see the coverage is very less. Okay, so in when we are going to the higher order frequencies, the thing is multiplexing, that is the multipaths won't be there. Okay, when the signal hits the surface, it won't reflect back and go to the receiver. Okay, that is one thing. It heavily relies on this line of sight path. Okay, so there are a lot of technologies that has been proposed for this. Particularly, the one thing that comes to my mind is, one is beamforming is one thing, and another one is IRS. IRS means intelligent reflecting surfaces. Okay, so okay, we'll discuss about that. So this is the coverage comparison of various frequencies, and when we talk about 5G, okay, and massive MIMO is one thing that has been proposed to tackle this kind of coverage problem. Okay, and we have so these are all the technologies we are going to discuss. So one is NOMA, millimeter wave, massive MIMO, full duplex radio technology, and simultaneous wireless information and power technology. Okay, so first one is NOMA, non-orthogonal multiple access. Okay, I think nowadays, if you just open a paper, not even now, other technologies have developed. After NOMA itself, some other technologies have came. Okay, I mean, overcoming this drawbacks of NOMA, like some other technology like RSMA. We will discuss that too. This NOMA is, previously it was OMA, orthogonal multiple access. So what is this orthogonal multiple access? So orthogonal multiple access, you would have heard a conventional TDMA, time division multiplexers, CDMA, and OFDMA. Okay, so there actually one resource block that is one resource block, either in the terms of frequency or in terms of time. Okay, one resource block in the completely belongs to one user. Okay, so that is why it is a orthogonal multiple access. So each users are orthogonal to each other. Okay, so they don't have any interference there. So that is orthogonal multiple access. So how come you can serve in a better way? So that's why there comes something called NOMA, non-orthogonal multiple access. Okay, so this is one of the key thing in 5G. The thing is, how the users are separated. Yeah, say I want to serve 2 or more users, not a single user, more than one user within a single time and a single frequency slot. So NOMA is one solution we have. Okay. So what it does is, so how come it divides the users? How come it could able to separate the users? So they use a domain called power domain. Okay, they allot different powers for different users information. Okay, so that is why it is called as NOMA, and this NOMA uses successive interference cancellation, and we can effectively utilize the spectrum. Okay, we could effectively utilize this. See, think about it. Just in the place of serving one user, you are serving more than one user. Okay, that means at least double times your efficiency will be, your efficiency will be doubled, of course. Okay, that is, spectral efficiency will be definitely doubled. Okay, and NOMA is something that is compatible with other technologies too. Okay, compatible in the sense it can be used in combining with OFDM or other technologies like TDMA. Okay, so it uses a successive interference cancellation, they famously called as SIC, and we will see how the things are done in NOMA. Okay, so let's consider a base station. So it has to serve 2 users. One is far user 1 is far user, and user 2 is the near user. So this far user, we want to send one message. Okay, the base station has to send one message, and it has to be decoded by, and it should has both the user 1 information and user 2 information. Okay, so that's what NOMA is. So how they are going to do? So firstly, it is better to see with respect to equations. Okay, so this is how the data will be transmitted. You could see S1 is far user data, that is user 1's data. S2 is the near user data, and P1 and P2 are the power allocation factors. Okay, power allocation factor, that is P1 plus P2 will be overall, it will be equal to 1. That means let's say if it is 1 watt. Okay, if it is 1 watt, then how much percentage will be going for user 1's information, how much percentage we have to use for user 2's information. Okay, that is one thing we want to think about. And if you see, for we have two users, one is far user and another one is near user. Far user is at higher distance, so the path loss will be higher. Okay, so what they do is they give more power for the far user data. So P1 is the far user data power allocation factor. P1 must be greater than P2. Okay, so this how many times it must be greater. So this is actually determined by the amount of path loss in that particular region. Okay, so right now we assume that P1 is far away, and P2 is, that is user 1 is far away and user 2 is near. So we allot more power for the far user data and less power for the near user data. So now both the data are combined. You could see they are superimposed. This is what called superimposing. You could see S1 and S2 are actually added. Okay, and rho s is the SNR. Okay, rho s is the SNR. That is what is the total transmit power we have and what is the noise power we do have. So so that is rho s, and this is the superimposed data. That means this S now have, the small s now have both far user data and near user data. Okay, now the crucial part is, how come we are going to receive how come we are going to separate this two information? How come the users are going to decode their own information? Okay, they don't want someone else's information. Okay, user 1 doesn't need user 2's information, and user 2 does not want user 1's information. They need their own information. So this is in general, this is the received signal of the ith user. Okay, so you could see Hi is the channel coefficient between the base station and the user I, and S is the signal transmitted, and Ni is the noise. Okay, noise of the ith user, noise occurring at the ith user. So this is the overall expression for the received signal at the ith user. And what happens at the first user? Let's say far user. Okay, so far user, if you see, more power is allotted to him, okay, his own symbols, and less power is allotted for the near user symbol. Okay, so obviously the majority part will be the majority part he receives is his own signal only. Okay, because it travels, the symbol will that means the superimposed symbol is traveling for a long distance. So majority part he will receive is his own signal only, and very less effect due to the near user data, because near user data is allotted a very less power. Now, so what it does is, it considers that near user data as an interference. Okay, so that's why we have SINR, that means signal to interference plus noise ratio. Okay, so we have, this is the signal power. In the numerator, we do have a signal power, and this is the noise power, interference power, and noise is actually normalized to 1 because we are taking rho s here. Okay, so it is normalized to 1. Okay, so that's why we have this SINR. So we know that according to Shannon capacity theorem, we have bandwidth into the capacity is actually equal to bandwidth times log 2 of 1 plus SNR or SINR. So that's why the achievable rate is here. Let's assume the bandwidth we are using is 1. Okay, unit bandwidth. Okay, so 1 into log 2 of 1 plus SINR. Okay, whatever the SINR. So this is the achievable rate of the far user. Okay, because the thing with the for user is he will happily decode his own data, and he don't worry about the near user data, because near user data anyway it is allotted with a small power, so it won't be very strong at the for user. Okay, but now coming to the user 2, that is the near user, he receives the signal. The strongest signal he has is the for user signal. Okay, for user signal is the strongest component in the received signal, in his received signal, in the near user received signal. Okay, so what he do is he decodes his data, that is for user data first, okay, because that is the strongest component in the received signal. So what he do is he first decodes that data, and he cancels that. Okay, he cancels that from the received signal. He cancels that signal from the received signal. That is interference, right? For him, user 2, that is the near user, for user data is an interference. So first he predicts the for user data, and he cancels out that data from the received signal. Now he will have his own signal only. Okay, now he will have his own signal only. Then he recovers back his own signal. So this is the idea behind this NOMA. So this is the main concept of NOMA. You could see this is his receiver signal. That is H2 is the channel gain between the base station and the user 2, and you could see the corresponding SINR when he is decoding. That means he first has to decode the user 2 information. So the thing is, you could see whatever near user 2, okay, user 2 symbol. So those things are taken, and the signal power of that user 2 is considered, and he will consider his own signal as, okay, this is the signal here. Okay, his own signal as interference for the first time. Then after decoding it, what he do is he cancels out that signal. So you could see this is Y2 is something that is received. Okay, Y2 is received. So now we know what is, we have predicted what is S1 is. Okay, it is estimated. So what he does is he will do a minus. Okay, he knows what is H2 is. H2 into square root of P1 rho S. Okay, rho S into S1. So if you see, this one and this one will go off. So this is successive interference cancellation. Okay, so here user 2 will do that, and right now the SINR, it is no more an SINR because we have cancelled the interference using successive interference cancellation, and it is SNR. Okay, it don't have a denominator. Okay, you could check, it don't have a denominator. The denominator is actually equal to 1 because noise power is normalized to 1, so it don't have a denominator there. Okay, so you could see this is the SNR, and the achievable rate is log 2 of 1 plus that SNR, and the sum rate is user 1's achievable rate plus user 2's achievable rate. Okay, this is user 1's achievable rate, and this is user 2's achievable rate. And to make a comparison with to make a fair comparison with the OMA, okay, so we will we will do some approximations. Okay, so at higher SNR, that means at higher values of rho S, this one will go. Okay, so we can cancel this out. Rho S H1 square and rho S H1 square can be cancelled out. So this is the term we have taken for higher SNR. Okay, we consider that a higher SNR. So this will be yielding P1 by P2. So this term here, the circled term here, will be replaced by P1 by P2, and we have plus log 2 of the same term. So we are approximating it like log to the base 2 of 1 by P2 plus rho S into H2 square. H2 is the channel gain. Okay, that is the channel coefficient actually. So now we have to make a comparison with the OMA, that is orthogonal multiplexers. The difference is previously we considered the achievable rate, the bandwidth is 1. Okay, for OMA we use half the bandwidth for one user and half the bandwidth for another user. Okay, so that's why half the bandwidth or half the time. Okay, that's why we are having a half indifferent. Okay, so we have log 2 of 1 plus rho S H1 square, log 2 of 1 plus, because there is no power allocation, nothing. Okay, we don't want to worry about that. It is not separated in the power domain. Okay, so let the power be equal to 1. Okay, there is only one power, and it is separated. The users are separated in the frequency domain. Let's assume, okay, half of the bandwidth is used by one user, half is used by another user. That's why we are obtaining an equation like this. Okay, on completely approximating, because we know that this is the near user. User 2 is the near user, right? User 2 is the near user. So the channel gain of the near user will be so high. Okay, because he has the strongest connect with the base station, right? So we can use this approximation, and we can approximate this equation. We can approximate this equation like this. Okay, so now for NOMA we have approximated an equation like this, and for OMA we have approximated. You could see this is nothing but the sum rate. Okay, this is sum rate. This is also sum rate of NOMA. You just observe the difference, and you could see how far it is better than OMA. How far NOMA is better than OMA. One thing is here a half is there. Okay, here it is 1. So sum rate is better in that terms. Okay, now come into log 2 of the same term is here. Okay, no problem. The same term is also here, but we have one additional component, 1 by P2. You know, P1 plus P2 is equal to 1, right? The power allocation factor, the sum of power allocation factors is equal to 1. So P2 must be less than 1. So 1 by P2 must be very higher value. Okay, so you could see, for obvious reasons, we could say that NOMA has a better sum rate, okay, at least twice the sum rate of OMA. Okay, so this is about NOMA versus OMA. This is the first technology I would like to discuss. Yeah, so far any doubts, I would like to hear it from you.
Good morning, sir.
Yeah, yes, ma'am.
Sir, you are saying the same frequency is used for user 1 and user 2.
Yes, ma'am.
So how it will cancel the interference? There will be interference.
Ma'am, that is what they are separated in the power domain.
Okay.
Yeah, you see this P1 and P2 are different. For this is the far user. User 1 is a far user. So P1 will set us. Let's say I want to transmit at some 30 watt. So I will allot 25 watt to the far user and just 5 watt to my near user.
Okay.
So overall I cannot exceed 30 watts. So if we do that, then the near user anyway he can receive anything easy. I mean, whatever small signal that has been transmitted from the base station, that will be received by him easily. But the far user, you want to shout at him. That means you want to allot more power for him.
Yeah.
So anyway, that will be heard by the near user. So what the near user will do, he will cancel out the far user's data.
Okay.
He will predict the far user data first, and he will cancel out the data from the received signal, and he can retrieve his own signal.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Fine. So I'll continue on this NOMA and OMA. So this is another technology that is that came as a successor of NOMA, that is rate splitting multiple access. I won't say it's a successor, but anyway, maybe in future we may claim that it is a successor. We don't know. Okay, maybe NOMA and RSMA will be in the same place. RSMA, rate splitting multiple access. The thing is, I'm not going to explain in detail with the equations. Just I will say what happens with this RSMA. What is the idea of this RSMA? First of all, in NOMA, if they are serving within a single frequency, if they want to serve more number of users, right now we have dealt with only 2 number of users. Just imagine that 3 user, 4 user cases are there. 3 user, 4 user, 5 user are served within a single frequency and time. Everyone has to do the SIC. Okay, so there are layers of SIC will be there. Okay, layers of SIC, like first we want to predict the near user data, the forest user data. Okay, then they have to second forest, they have to decode the second forest data. So they want to cancel everything, each and everything at every time. So this SIC layers will be more. Okay, so at that point of time, there is someone called RSMA came in, and what they do is they divided a message into a common part and a private part. Okay, common part and private part. That means if there is a message, okay, if I want to receive a message and you want to receive another message, you are sitting at another place, I am sitting at another place, our messages are different. Okay, that's why we have something called encoder. Okay, so but we do have an encoder. That means we do have a encoder table. So let's say that 1001 is being sent from the base station for us. Okay, so I will be receiving the same 1001. You will be also receiving the same 1001. For me, 1001 means it is different. Okay, it may indicate some other message signal. Okay, for you, 1001 means a different one. Okay, so this tables will be given to all the users. Okay, this type of encoder tables will be given to all the users, and they will identify this this transmitter. That is, the base station will identify the data, and it will separate into common part and private part, and they will be combining this common part and private part. So whatever I receive, okay, this is let's say this is the user, this is V, and this complete setup is the base station. Okay, so this is one thing we want to do. First thing we want to do is first decode the common part. First decode the common part. Okay, and then do a SIC. Okay, so there also SIC will be coming, but the thing is the number of layers of SIC are less when we are going for more number of users. Okay, the same RSMA concept only, but with quite some difference. Okay, I mean the same NOMA concept only, but with some modifications. Okay. So this is an idea for RSMA. I would suggest, in case if you are doing a research in wireless, you just go through this RSMA, because this is an area right now open. Okay, so the next technology we are going to discuss is a massive MIMO. The first one is while entering into the massive MIMO, we want to know what is a point-to-point MIMO, what is a multi-user MIMO. Okay, so how come they are contributing to this? Actually, MIMO is a failure one. Okay, to be frank, MIMO, initially it was proposed way back in 1990s itself. So that was actually a failure one. That was proposed by an Indian in Stanford University. Stanford, I'm not sure about the university. There is some professor called Paul Raj. He's the one to propose it. And the thing is, the receiver, a base station can have a number of antennas. Okay, the base station is a huge unit, and you could place the antennas at various distances. Okay, so that is possible. Okay, in base station, using multiple number of antennas is possible. Just imagine of your mobile phone. Whatever mobile phone we are having now, it won't have more than one antenna. If it is having more than one antenna, then it might be having an antenna for a Bluetooth or a Wi-Fi. Okay, so more than for receiving mobile signal itself, it won't have a MIMO. MIMO concept there. Okay? MIMO setup is not there. Okay? So this point-to-point MIMO, the problem is the rank of this matrix. That is, here there will be a matrix. Here, this here there will be a matrix. This rank of the matrix should not be equal to 0 at all. But the thing is, when the receiver is moving and he is moving to the cell edge and all, there won't be any LOS, and there is a possibility that this rank of the matrix could go to 0. Okay, but so that's why we say that point-to-point MIMO is a little useless. But anyway, it will definitely be it has definitely contributed to the other concepts that has been used now. Okay, so there is an evolution came, and we are using multi-user MIMO. So you could see the CSI. That is, CSI means in this one, channel state information. Okay, it is nothing but the H that is prevailing between. H is the channel coefficient matrix that is available between the transmitter and the receivers. Okay, so here the number of antennas, that is number of transmit antennas, let's say it is M, number of transmit antennas, and K is the number of users. Okay, both are almost equal. Okay, if it has 8 number of antennas, so on a per second it can I mean, every instant it can serve 8 different users. Okay? So, but anyway, the divisions will be also different using various technologies. As I said, OFDMA, NOMA, all things are there, right? So, right now we are discussing with respect to antennas, the number of antennas firstly, and we have the multi-user MIMO, and there's the thing is the difference between the point-to-point and the multi-user MIMO is in the point-to-point MIMO within a device itself we are assuming that we are having more than one antenna, that is k number of antennas. Now we have k number of users, each user is having one antenna each. Okay, so virtually it is a MIMO, okay, but it is a multi-user MIMO. So this is something we can really relate to our real-time scenario. Okay, we have a base station, we are the users here. Okay, so what happens is the disadvantage of this is like it needs to know the CSI at both at the transmitter and at the receiver. Okay, and anyway, smaller gains only can be achieved with this multi-user MIMO. What happens with the massive MIMO? Okay, so just a minute. Okay, so this is massive MIMO. That means we are introducing more number of antennas to our. You could see previously it was less number of antennas. I'm just pictorially just representing that there are more number of antennas are used. Okay, like say 200 antennas are used for the massive MIMO. Okay, and you could see the CSI is available only at the base station, and it is not. That is, CSI is not required at the receiver. That is, we users did not want to know about the CSI because knowing about the CSI itself is a tedious process. Okay, that you have to understand. The thing is, it has to send the pilot symbols and it has to retrieve back what is the. It has to study about this channel. Okay, all the studying will be done by the predicting the H matrix. Okay, that is the CSI. This predicting the H matrix will be only done by the base station. It will not be done by your mobile phones. Okay, if such signal processing tasks are taken up by our mobile phones, then it will consume more power. Okay, so that's why we are giving that, we are offloading that work to the base station. Base station, you do that work. So base station will take that. I'll predict the CSI for you. I will send that CSI for you. So using that, you can start predicting. Start decoding. Okay, so such signal processing tasks are very much reduced with massive MIMO, and so this is the main advantage of going for the massive MIMO. So that's why we started from point-to-point MIMO. We gone for multi-user MIMO. So multi-user MIMO is a practical thing, real thing that is happening now, and this multi-user MIMO is converted to the massive MIMO by increasing the number of antennas. So there is a person called Thomas Marsetta. So he is the one to invent this massive MIMO, and what he said is channel state information isn't everything. Okay, it is not the whole world, but it is the only thing we have. Okay, the only thing we have to contribute to our mobile phone energy efficiency of the mobile phones. Okay, so mathematically we can analyze this massive MIMO. Firstly, MISO, we have a multiple antenna at the transmitter, and let's say multiple antenna is serving only one user. So if you see the received signal at the receiver, that is the mobile phone, it will be the linear combination of everything. Okay, like X1, H1. H1 is the matrix H. Actually, this is a vector. Okay, this is a vector H. Okay, so H is equal to H1, H2, H3, H4. Okay, so X1, H1, X2, H2, X3, H3, X4, H4, like that. It will be a linear combination, and that's why we are representing in the linear algebra terms. And so here it is very easy to recover anyway, because only one message. The thing is, if it is multiple symbol, then it is a little hard to actually recover it. So they are using the matched filter thing here. So the matched filter is you need to multiply with some constants W1, W2, W3, W4 before transmitting a symbol. Okay, before transmitting a symbol, we want to multiply with this weights. Okay, so this W1, W2 are nothing but the matched filter. So this matched filter is nothing but your channel state information. Okay, W corresponds to the channel state information. Okay, it is H conjugate divided by the norm of H. Okay, so and so the SNR we'll be having the SNR like. Okay, so now let's enter into the multi-user MIMO scenario. Okay, so here there are n number of antennas. Okay, here let's say n number of antennas are there, and we have a few number of users. Okay, few number of users are here, that is k number of users. Here I have given 3, but it is actually k number of users. Okay, let's assume k number of users. If you see, we will be having a link from every antenna to every device. Okay, one device will be linked with all other antennas. Okay, so such a way that it is connected like that, and when we are transmitting, we will be doing a conjugation of we will be adding all the signals of different users. Okay, here k is the number of users, SI is the ith user information, so it is combined. Okay, it is combined in such a way that the matched filter coefficient is multiplied with them. Okay, and then while receiving, if you see, this is the signal we receive. Here, this is the signal term. Okay, this is the desired signal term. That is, the ith user has to decode its own symbol. Okay, so this is the desired signal term, and this one here is the interference of the near user. Other user symbols. Okay, because we are combining this symbols and we are sending it, right? So this is the interference. So that's why we have a SINR of the ith user. Okay, which has a signal term. Okay, sigma SI square is the signal power, and we have this channel gain as well. Okay, so this is the interference. If you see, this interference is so huge. So that means if the thing is, it is not so good. It is hard to implement with respect with the matched filter in the multi-user MIMO scenario. Okay, instead, what they do is, like, if you keep on increasing the number of antennas, this term here, right, the denominator, the interference term will go to 0. So now my SNR will be converted to SINR. So SINR is a bad fellow, but SNR is something we can easily deal with. Okay, we can easily deal with noise, but interference, because noise is mostly, it will be Gaussian only. But interference, we have to eliminate. Okay, so this is about the number of on increasing the number of antennas. What is the effect on the SINR? What is the effect on the performance? That's what we have discussed now. And what happens with the directivity when we increase the number of antennas? So this is the scenario of one antenna. You could see the signals is transmitting in all the direction. Okay, this is the effect of using 8 number of antennas. Only that a particular user is served, and also we have some substantial side lobes as well. Okay, we have a main lobe which serves the main user, but this will create interferences. Okay, so when we have more number of antennas, like say here they are having 64 number of antennas, so we can have a pointed beam towards that user. So that's why, as I said earlier, we can serve some remote villages very easily, okay, with higher data rate. Okay, so so this is the advantage of going for the massive MIMO. Okay, and these are all the applications of massive MIMO beamforming applications. You could see this backhaul. Backhaul means the connection between two base stations. Okay, two different base stations. That is, main base station will be there, and sub base stations will be there. Okay, like macrocell, microcell. Okay, so those concepts, and we can have for a larger building, we do have the sectorization things and all. So this is the application of massive MIMO. And one more fellow is beamforming. So beamforming is a it's a common concept. There are two types of beamforming. I'll wind up a little faster. we have two types of beamforming. One is digital beamforming, another one is analog beamforming. Digital beamforming means, firstly, we will say what is analog beamforming. Generally, we say beamforming means beamforming will form a beam towards a particular user. Okay, that's what we say, right? Like it will go like this. Okay, so this is what we call it as beamforming, right? So these are all some side lobes. Okay, beam is formed towards a particular user. Okay, so this is beamforming, and so generally that is analog beamforming. So what is digital beamforming? So in digital beamforming, we do have we do serve more number of users. Like we can form multiple beams, and we can serve with each beam we can serve one user. Okay, so we go for multiple number of beams in digital beamforming, and it must be noted that here one RF chain is connected to one antenna. One RF chain is connected to one antenna. Okay, here one RF chain is connected to multiple number of antennas. So this is analog beamforming, and this is digital beamforming. Okay, there are problems when problem arises when we are going for massive MIMO. Massive MIMO means you will be having 100 or 200 antennas. So we cannot definitely have we definitely cannot have 100 or 200 RF chains. Okay, that is a scenario that will come with respect to massive MIMO. So what we are going to do then is we just combine this advantages of digital beamforming and advantages of analog beamforming together, and with the lesser number of RF chains, we could able to connect more number of antennas. Okay, so that is actually known as the hybrid beamforming. Okay, that is actually known as the hybrid beamforming. Okay, so the main motivation of bringing in the hybrid beamforming is that firstly, when we go to millimeter wave, okay, obviously massive MIMO is one solution for that. Because millimeter wave also does not supports this multipath, so it relies only on this pointed pointed beam. Okay, so it goes for more number of antennas, and as I said, we cannot use 100 or 200 RF chains. Definitely we want to go for some other solution. So the solution is hybrid beamforming. So how the antennas are connected here, with the lesser number of RF chains, how we could able to connect with the more number of antennas. So that connections are classified into two things so far in the literature. Okay, so this is fully connected and subconnected hybrid beamforming. In the fully connected beamforming, we have RF chains. Okay, we have number of RF chains. Okay, we have more number of antennas. Remember, we have 100 number of antennas, let's say, and let's say we have 10 RF chains. Okay, this is 10 RF chains, and we have 100 antennas. So how we are going to connect it? One thing is through phase shifter. Okay, phase shifter and all, it's a basic unit of beamforming, analog beamforming. Okay, so one thing is it is fully connected. That means through every RF chain will be connected to all the antennas. Okay, one RF chain, this RF chain will be connected to all the antennas through the phase shifter. You could see this RF chain is connected to this antenna, okay, to this antenna, and then it is also connected to the last antenna here. Okay, whereas let's say the last RF chain, okay, you could see the same thing is applicable there as well. Okay, so almost like now 10 RF chains are connected to all the 100 antennas. Okay, so that's why it is called as a fully connected hybrid beamforming. Now, subconnected hybrid beamforming, what we are going to do then? So we divide that antenna into 10, 10. Okay, so now one RF chain is connected to 10 number of antennas. Okay, another RF chain will be connected to the next set of 10 antennas. So overall 100 antennas will be connected to RF chains, but not I hope you find the difference between why we are going for a fully connected and why we are going for the subconnected. One thing is sure, the subconnected is very easy to handle. Okay, instead of fully connected, subconnected is easy to handle. but for fully connected also has its own advantages. Okay, and yes, so that is it with hybrid beamforming. So this is one another technology that is going to be a part of your 5G. Okay, and we have full duplex communication. So this might seem a old terminology, full duplex communication. So right now, whatever we are using is a half duplex thing. Why? Because we use TDD or FDD, okay, time division duplexing or frequency division duplexing, LTE, TDD, right? Hope you have heard of it, FDD, LTE, and TDD, LTE. Okay, let's say FDD, LTE, that is frequency division duplexing LTE. They use 10 megahertz for uplink and 10 megahertz for downlink. That means a separate frequency is used for transmission and a separate frequency is used for reception. Okay, so virtually it is not virtually. Virtually it may seem like you are talking and hearing at the same time, but you are not using the same frequency. So that means you are using a half duplex communication only. Okay, so what is a full duplex communication then? So full duplex communication is within the same time, within the same frequency, almost like NOMA only. Okay, I'll say within the same time and within the same frequency, we want to make sure we transmit our information as well as we receive our information. So what we do? So first we understand what are all the prerequisites of understanding this full duplex communication. So one is this is the general transceiver design. If you see, F1 is the transceiver. That means it has both the transmitter and the receiver. Okay, so this is transmitter chain, and here this is the receiver chain. Okay, it has a lot of components missing, but the key things are actually added. Okay, so here you could see F1 is the frequency that has been transmitted, and it is transmitted at the frequency F1, and it is received at the frequency F2, and so we don't have any problem. So we use a duplexer, and we can switch our antenna between the transmitter and the receiver. We can switch it between them. Okay, we can switch our power between them. Okay, so it operates at 2 different frequencies. Okay, that is very important. Okay? So this is a general transceiver design. Okay, so before entering into the full duplex communication, we want to know at what power we are transmitting and at what power we are receiving an information. Okay, so we are transmitting at 20 dB and we are receiving it at minus 70 dB actually. Around whatever signal we receive is around minus 70 dBm. Okay, so here it is given as minus 50 dBm. Okay, so the thing is, in terms of watt, we transmit 0.1 watt and we receive 0.1 nanowatt. Okay, that means this is transmitter and this is receive. Okay, so you could see there is a huge difference. That is, the receiver is having 10 power 9 watt. I mean 10 power 9 times it is the received power is lesser than that transmit power, right? So there is a large dynamic range. This is going to be used for our for this full duplex communication. This dynamic range will be effectively used for our that is full duplex communication. So how we are going to use that? One thing is we have a transceiver. That means within a single chip we will have our transmitter and the receiver. So we know what is the signal that is being transmitted. Okay, the transceiver knows what is the signal that is being transmitted. So if we are transmitting and receiving at the same frequency, we will receive our own voice, okay, our own message, as well as whatever message that is actually received together. So what we do is, we know what is a signal that has been transmitted. So we subtract that signal from the received signal. So what we obtain is, we will obtain that what is actually received from the, what is actually the received signal, what received signal we actually have. Okay, so this is the idea of full duplex communication, and this is what we call it as self-interference cancellation. Okay, self-interference cancellation. See that the main difference between the previous conventional communication system and given here is the frequency of transmission and reception is same. Okay, the carrier frequency. You could see the same local oscillator is used for both the transmitter and the receiver chain. Okay, whereas previously, if you see F1 and F2 are the two frequencies we used. Okay, and instead of duplexer, we do have a circulator. This is also a 2-port device, but it operates at a single frequency. Okay, because we are dealing with only one frequency only, right now, and also we need some kind of attenuation between this port here and this port here. Okay, so we have a 20 dB attenuation with the circulator. I'm not entering into the values. I'll just say what is actually happening with self interference cancellation. So the thing is, it is not easy to cancel our own signal. Okay, say this is our transmitting signal. Okay, our receiving signal will be like this. Spikes won't be coming anyway. This is my received signal. Ignore the spikes. Okay, so if you just check the power ranges of transmitting and received signal, transmitted signal is more. So somehow we know this, what is the signal that has been sent, right? So we want to cancel that. Okay, we want to cancel that. So that cancellation happens in two different regions. One is analog cancellation and another one is digital cancellation. Okay, so this is one thing we would like. So why it is not done so far? Why full duplex communication is coming only in 5G? Why not in 4G? Why not in 3G? Why people never thought about it? The thing is, actually, if we are sending two tones, okay, let's say two sine waves we are sending at some 2.48 and 2.448 gigahertz and 2.51 gigahertz. This is what we think we are transmitting. But the thing is, it will have a lot of harmonics. You could see this is a harmonic. This is the actual tone, but who are all they? Okay, so it is not easy to transmit. It is not easy to cancel what is the thing we have transmitted. Okay, because there are a lot of problems that comes with the RF components. Okay, that's why we are going for analog cancellation and digital cancellation separately. And we do take this signal, whatever signal that is being transmitted, it is at 20 dBm. Okay, I hope this is the 20 dBm. Okay, so this transmitted signal at the receiver chain, it has to go below that noise floor. Then only I could receive whatever signal I have. Okay, so first I do a analog cancellation and we reduce it by 62 dBm, and then we do a digital cancellation and we reduce it by 48 dBm. Okay, so that my transmitted signal will go below this noise floor. Okay, so this is the idea of self-interference cancellation, and this is a method proposed by Rice University. They want to exactly replicate what is the message that is being sent. Okay, that's why they are having a separate chain for that. Okay, so this is about the self-interference cancellation. That means full duplex communication. Using self-interference cancellation only, we can go for full duplex communication. Okay, fine. Now, so this has various technologies like UAV, millimeter wave. This topic, UAV assisted millimeter wave communication, has few other topics too. So UAV means unmanned aerial vehicle. That is, some drones will be acting as base stations. Okay, so that is the idea of UAV. You see, not this time, but during this 2016 Chennai floods and all, the communication got affected, right? Because the base station and the electronics within that are watered. Okay, so what they do, so what is one solution is UAV would be one solution to establish a communication. Okay, so it was in a place called Puerto Rico. Okay, they called the AT&T's network operator. They provided a solution for this called COW. That means cell on wings. Okay, it means cell on wings. Okay, this is that. So you could see, we could have a temporary base station, okay, that is flying on the top. okay, on top of you, and it can serve a few number of users with lesser data rates. Okay, that they can fix, at least, because for serving at the emergency period we require something, right? So for that, this kind of setup is being there. Okay, and we have other programs too, like Facebook Aquila. So they use solar powered drones. Okay, that is UAV, unmanned aerial vehicles, and Nokia Bell Laboratories FCell. Okay, and there are various other programs too. You could just Google it. These are all the applications of UAV. Okay, the millimeter wave. Okay, so I'll wind up this a little quickly. The problem with the millimeter wave is, see, there are advantages. Firstly, if we are going for the higher order frequencies, then the wavelength will be very less, and so the devices will be getting shorter and shorter. Okay, that means within a small mobile itself, we could accommodate more number of antennas. Okay, so that's why our like our equipments, I mean our devices will be getting smaller in size. Okay, so but what is the problem with going with the higher order frequencies? You could see the path loss is directly proportional to the frequency. Okay, this is a conventional Friis transmission equation, and as the frequency increases, this path loss will definitely be increasing. Okay, so you could see for various distances and for the increasing frequency, we could see what is the path loss we are getting. Okay, so that means the power is keep on reducing as we move towards the higher order frequencies. Okay, the received power will be keep on reducing. Okay, and we also have some atmospheric attenuation. Not every frequency is from 1 megahertz to from 0 to 350 megahertz. It is not. It cannot be used, first of all. Okay, there is some sort of attenuations will be there around 60 gigahertz. Okay, this is attenuation. Yeah, around 60 gigahertz, around 120 gigahertz, around 180 gigahertz. Okay, attenuations will be there, and because the atmospheric particles will be vibrating at the same frequency, so we cannot effectively make a communication there. Okay, so that's why all the frequencies are not used. Only a particular area is assigned for its own application. Okay, based on its need. Okay, there is rain attenuation is there. I hope you know during rain we may get some our calls may get disconnected. So because of that path loss, okay, we have some attenuation due to rain as well. Okay, so this is about the integration of millimeter wave and UAV. So this is actually my conclusion slide, because I am as far as whatever I have read, I felt like this is something we are going to see in future. Okay, we will be having some flying base stations very soon. Okay, so we will be having flying base stations, and we will be having some direct contact between the base station. LOS path will be there, because we are going for the higher order frequencies. LOS path is required, so we require drones, that is UAVs. Okay, and we have some other drones too, that is higher altitude, lower altitude. Okay, such UAVs are there. Okay, so yeah, so that is it actually for the presentation. I would like to hear from you any doubts or anything. Okay, okay. Ma'am, actually, so whoever it is, Megha Gupta, so she has asked that can it be shown as an experiment? The thing is, actually, MATLAB is not enough. Actually, this is practically implemented in IITM itself. There is a person, there is a professor named Radhakrishna Ganti. I think I have taken his paper, and there is one more guy. His name I do remember. His name is Dinesh Baradia. He is also an Indian. He is working in Stanford. He is the one to come up with that. He's the one to come up with this idea of self-interference cancellation, and this has been improved by the IITM actually works on this, and they do improve this by by practically checking it and all. But yes, practically already it's been implemented. You could check on that. Yes, definitely I will. Ma'am, I'll type self-interference. You just put self-interference cancellation in Google, and you can also search for Professor Dr. Radha Krishna Ganti. So he is someone who was working there, and yeah, in adaptive statistical based channel estimation, which detection algorithm is more. Actually, I haven't been more into this statistical, channel estimation thing. Channel estimation part. Just now I have started on this channel estimation part. The thing is, there are various things for various technologies. Like even there is a technology called OTFS. Okay, OTFS means OFDM, the successor of actually the OFDM. Okay, OFDM will be replaced by a technology called OTFS, okay, which I haven't included here. That one will have some impulse method like sending the pilots and estimating the channel. There are other methods too, like compressed sensing methods are also used because the channel is sparse in nature. A lot of methods are there. So based on whichever application, you just search it, you will get a lot of methods, and out of that you actually it's not under my scope. So to be frank, okay. Said MIMO is like it is a failure in the sense initially it failed, but later on the concepts of MIMO are the base for whatever technology we are experiencing today, right? So MIMO is not efficiently used so far. Maybe definitely with millimeter wave coming in, we could accommodate more number of antennas in our mobile. Okay, so it will be definitely MIMO will be one other key player. We cannot write off MIMO definitely, because we do have highlight on recent. Okay, see, ma'am, whatever topic I have discussed today, I would suggest you to go for RSMA. That is one thing, and other areas too I have mentioned about, like hybrid beamforming and full duplex communication. UAV, it's not like one technology that is individually we can use. One technology can be used with the conjugation with other technologies. Okay, so particularly for Indian scenario, like what to say, we need more data rate. It's the need of our society. Okay, yeah, like smart city or digital India, new concept. Yes.
Hello, sir.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Good morning, sir.
Yeah, good morning, sir.
Very good presentation, sir. Sir, I thought you had the experience in SDR labs, correct?
Yeah.
I have some doubt in that practical point of view.
Yeah.
In a NOMA system, you are supplying the power for two user with the
Yes.
two different level of powers.
Yes.
How can you implement in SDR that point? I mean, how can you supply two different powers in the single?
Actually, like this USRP kit, you are asking about that, sir? Or?
Sir, yes, sir.
Sir, USRP kit I haven't worked with. The thing is, I worked with only MATLAB simulations only. Maybe the power can be regulated now. Anyway, you are superimposing means. If you are superimposing means, ultimately how much percentage of power should be allotted for one user, how much percentage of power should be allotted for another user. So that's the thing we need to concentrate. Anyway, the transmit power can be controlled by our USRP, controlled in this USRP itself. So I'm sure it can be done, but I haven't tried. That is the thing.
Hello, sir.
Yeah, yes, sir. Yes.
Actually, in a power-based NOMA, only two users are separated by the power
No,
level.
actually,
Why don't we go for the more number of users?
more number of users can also be. We can go for more number of users, but the problem is with two users itself, it's very difficult. NOMA. Okay, that is something I have heard from my project mate, Professor Nalin. Okay, so even two users is difficult because we want to separate the informations, right? So
Can you mention the difficulties? What kind of
as I
problems
said,
in the actually?
you will be having like we have to combine more user data together, and every user has to decode someone else's data, keep on decoding someone else's data. Okay, so the complexity of our system will keep going. The SIC layers will keep on increasing, and our complexity of our system will be more. So,
Yeah, the receiver point of view.
yes, sure point. We cannot keep loading our mobile with more signal processing task. So that is one.
Then mean because of the future communications linked with the cloud-based things, why don't you use that cloud-based signal processing and that information supplied to the main users? Is it possible that point of view? When you
I'm not
go
aware about this cloud-based signal processing. So I better avoid that. Actually,
okay,
this
no,
is about connection between our mobile and our base station. So anyway, once you are getting into this cloud, that means you are already connected. So I'm talking about the way to connect. Once you are connected, you can do anything, sir.
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. One more thing. That means how you allocate what kind of what base you are splitting the users, selecting the users.
Sir, only
Because
sir, that
this
itself is a separate problem in NOMA, like user segregation. Who are near users and who are far users? That classification itself will have some problem. Yeah.
can you can you mention the problems in there because of
Sir,
some people working?
You can select some far user, but the thing is, he may have some LOS path with that base station. So he may be considered as a strong user. That means a near user. So there is a possibility that you may consider him as a far user, but he is far only. But the thing is, distance is not the only criteria. The path loss it also matters, okay? Because the LOS path is there. The classifying the users, because we are going to combine two users. There is no use of combining like near user and far user and far user. Okay, so we want to combine who is really near, who is really having a strong channel with the base station, and who is really having a poor channel with the base station. So that identification itself is an optimization problem. So optimization algorithms are actually applied there. Some kind of machine learning is also applied there.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So my mail ID is I'll type it. My phone number is 8079594440.
Hello, sir.
Yeah, yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I'm Dr. Kanmani, sir. I'm working in Massive MIMO channel estimation.
Okay, ma'am. Okay.
Currently, I'm doing it in MATLAB, sir.
Ma'am,
Can you suggest some other simulators for channel?
In my opinion, MATLAB is very much user friendly, and definitely first, if you are very good at MATLAB, we don't want to worry about anything, because MATLAB is someone who keeps on updating his communication simulators, And
Yes,
you
sir.
can use Python, ma'am. Python can be used definitely because machine learning things can be easily implemented with Python when compared with MATLAB.
Okay, okay, okay,
So
sir. Because estimating the channel adaptively, I find some difficulty, sir.
yeah, maybe the matrix size would exceed. So
Yeah.
such problems will be there definitely. You can try Python, ma'am. Also, some in case if the matrix size are going bigger means then you can go for some parallel computing lab and you can do your simulations, ma'am.
Okay, okay, okay. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. No, sir. No, ma'am. There was a question like other than I don't know. I mean, to be frank, see, MATLAB and Python itself is enough, in my opinion. Other things are just for implementations only. Like there are a lot of other software tools too, like System View, Simulink, NI simulator. That is National Instruments do have some simulators. Okay, so such things are keep on coming. Anyway, I feel comfortable with MATLAB, so I suggest MATLAB only. Okay, thank you. So.
Any other queries? Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you for the wonderful presentation. I would like to thank our resource person, Dr. M. Surender, Associate Professor, NIT Puducherry, who honored the session with his fruitful thoughts. Thank you, sir, once again for your wonderful presentation.
Thank you, ma'am.
The session was extremely informative. It helps us gaining wide knowledge in the domain of 5G and beyond 5G wireless communication. You have broadly covered all the concepts related with the 5G wireless communication. Surely our participants have taken many valuable things from your session as well as they can able to implement it as a project in their research work. Thanks a lot for your presence, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Thank you all. Such a I like your questions. I will improve myself. Because with your questions only I can improve. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah,
Dear,
thank you, ma'am. Yeah.
dear participants, feedback form is available in the chat box. Please fill up the feedback form and I will join once again by the next session exactly by 12 noon. Thank you.